Plenty to watch in the fertilizer markets, from a possible update on India's latest urea tender to looming U.S. sanctions on Russian exports that could tighten global supply and troubling signs in phosphate imports heading into the fall. I'm Johanna Bota, and here to bring us up to speed is Josh Linville, VP of Fertilizer at StoneX. Welcome, Josh. So let's start with India. We talked a lot about its possible urea tender last week. What's the latest on that purchase this morning?
So it's important to note we don't know anything official yet. And that's not surprising with the way this process goes. You know, it takes a long time, a lot of back and forth between India and the different offers that are out there. As of right now, the expectation is that they're going to purchase around 2.5 million. Now, remember, they had 5.6 million tons offering, the most we had ever seen in a single India urea purchase tender. So to buy 2.5 million is a good chunk. And by our expectations, and that's shared with several people that we speak to in the marketplace, we figured between this tender and anything future going through January, they need about 3 million ton. So this is going to be very interesting to watch. If they do get 2.5, do they only have 500,000 ton to buy for the rest of the year? Will they buy a little bit more, trying to build up stockpiles just in case that demand's a little bit better, or to get a jump on next year given some of the global problems? But again, we're kind of sitting back and waiting to see what happens with this. How many tons do they actually secure?
I see. Thank you for the update. So let's put urea aside for a moment. The global UAN market may also be in focus. So there's talk that Trump could actually put new sanctions on Russia. How might that shake up the market?
Yeah, this is something a lot of folks in the fertilizer industry, and even those outside the industry, are looking at and saying, well, that's just a US problem. And that could not be further from the truth. When you look at UAN, we're already talking to a much smaller audience base out there. UAN, globally speaking, is a much smaller product than, say, anhydrous or urea or anything like this. So we look at it, Russia has been struggling to find homes around the world for their UAN that they export. It's a very Western country product to use. And you look at the customer base, they used to ship a decent chunk to Canada. Well, they've blocked flows from Russia because of that whole war with Ukraine. Australia has done the same. Europe has done the same. And so all of a sudden, these countries who no longer get their product from Russia have to start looking at other places. They go to places like Trinidad, who's had their own production issues. Then they end up falling back to the US. The US has never put tariffs, they have never put blockades on goods being shipped in from Russia. But now, with President Trump starting that talk once again, if we wake up one morning and suddenly see that Trump has moved forward, that will stop that flow. And unfortunately, yes, it will be very, very bad for the US/North America farmer, but it's also going to be very bad for the rest of the world, because if Russia can no longer access the US system, there's no really other market out there to go after. Now Russia has to start thinking about, we may need to just slow down or shut down our UAN exports. That, globally speaking, the S&D gets that much tighter. That means that all of a sudden there's not as many tons available in the US. That means there's not as many tons to be exported from the US into places like Australia, Canada, Europe. So this one event that the world may sit there and say, oh, well, that's just a US problem. That is not the case. This would be a world event that we need to be watching very, very closely.
And a bit of a domino effect, I guess. So sticking with UAN, prices in North America are now trading at double-digit premium to urea, an even bigger one to NH3. What's driving that spread, and how do you see it playing out?
So whenever we speak about, you look at urea price, you look at UAN price, anhydrous price, generally speaking, people will look at the flat price. We like to look at it on a price per pound of actual N, because at the end of the day, that's what the end user cares about. The farmer, they're looking at, what does that nitrogen truly cost me? So again, we typically look at North America, NOLA, New Orleans, Louisiana, as our biggest liquidity trade point. When we look at that, we look at the UAN price versus where urea prices are right now for the future. There's a 10-cent spread between the two of those. And that's basically the UAN market's way of saying, I've got a lot of problems. And that has been a case that we have been talking about quite a bit. We're starting with low inventories. Our exports could be bigger. Of course, we could shut down our imports. Demand is going to continue to be solid. We've got a lot of production turnarounds across North America. The market is struggling with its S&D. It's, with the price as high as it is actively trying to push that demand to urea, to anhydrous, to something else, because it's basically saying, I don't have the supply to meet the demand.
Now, before I let you go, I just have one more question. It's about phosphate, because July trade data showed that U.S. imports came in extremely low, raising concerns for the fall. How serious is that supply shortfall?
It's tough. When you look at it, obviously, the U.S. has put a lot of blockades on the global phosphate marketplace. When you really break it down, there's 5 countries that control almost all of phosphate production and exports. Those countries are China, Morocco, Russia, Saudi Arabia, and then the U.S. And we have either got tariffs or duties or both on all 4 of those other nations. And so when we've been looking at our import flow, it's been very, very meager. It's been very, very low because we've basically told everybody, ship your product around the world. Everybody else is willing to give you more money than what we're willing to give you. So our export or our import flow has gone to next to nothing. You start to couple that with our own production rates, which has been very, very low. The US market, the North American market, who has been threatening demand destruction this fall, it needs to follow through, because if all of a sudden there's a last minute decision, oh, we're going to go ahead and put on phosphate, we've got a very big problem ahead of us.
Josh, thank you so much for all your insight, and thank you for watching. For more financial content, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.